Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Sarpy County and City's Wastewater Agency. Today's Wednesday, April 26, 2023. It's 4:01 p.m. Copy of the Opens Meeting Act is located on the north wall of our agency boardroom. We'll hold the meeting in accordance with those rules. Today in attendance, we have the Mayor of Springfield, Bob Roseland, the Mayor of Gretna, Mike Evans, the Director of Public Works for La Vista, Joe Susi, the Mayor of Bellevue, Rusty Hike, the Planning Director still, right?
Deputy Administrator.
There you go, man. Congratulations on the promotion. Mark Sturzman is representing Papillion. He is Deputy City Administrator. I'm Don Kelly. I'm from Sarpy County. We got Dan Hoynes, our Agency Administrator here, and Lisa Hare, our Agency Treasurer, along with our staff, Jeff Thompson and Adam Charleston. If you would, silence your phones if you haven't already, and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, any comments or announcements from the board? Okay, then we'll get right into the staff report, starting with our Agency Administrator, Dan Hoynes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, member mayors and staff. Just a brief, you're going to hear a little bit from me today, so I'll be really brief. We continue to pursue the WIFIA loan. It's still progressing. We're probably 2 or 3 weeks behind, but we're trying to align a WIFIA requirement with the SRF loan that's going to require modification. That's a very high level. Still trying to get to the June 30th date, but it will be close. But your administrators have been great to work with. We meet again tomorrow. They really know what's going on. If you have any questions with that, ask them or give me a call. So I'll just stop there because there's several other agenda items, Mr. Chair, that I'll be addressing the board on this evening.
Okay. Any questions for Dan? Jeff Thompson, Agency Engineer.
Chairman Kelly, agency member mayors, thank you. Been a very busy week, busy month actually. Pleased to report that all of the pipe is in the ground through Springfield. They're doing some cleanup and, some testing and some things like that, but for the most part, all of the pipe has been installed, both lines, the SCI line and the cold water blowdown line. So great news there. Hopefully start getting things turned back over to the farming community to plant and get that put behind us, at least through Springfield. Also happy to report that the Zweibel Creek 3 gravity line from 72nd and roughly Schramm Road between Cape Art and Platteview Road is completely installed down to the lift station site. I've got a slide deck that I'll kind of talk through as well, but very good news there. We actually notified, or in the process of notifying all the farmers along that corridor that they can go ahead and get that planted. So things there are complete. They're still working on the lift station and getting some things buttoned up there, but the main line work there is all in and done. Moving on to segment 3, the contractor has got majority of the pipe in. There are little bits and pieces here and there. They're tying together from about 42nd Street all the way to 27th. That's basically in the ground and more or less done. Some cleanup and some things there. All the structures for Bellevue are complete, and start to see seating and matting and erosion control things going down here shortly there as well. Segment 4, the tie-in structure over the outfall sewer to Omaha is done for the most part. They've got the lid yet to pour. Not going to do that until we actually cut the top end of that interceptor pipe open, which won't be until we get a little bit closer with making that connection and having everything ready to flow to Omaha. But very, very close there. They continue to tie in and lay pipe. They're pretty much done from Pinecrest and 10th Street all the way up to about just short of 27th Street. So got a lot of pipe in the ground so far. So with that, I will jump through and just kind of go through a slide deck here. As everybody's well aware, the project layout. This is alignment through Springfield. This is basically the last segment of work that they've been working on through Springfield. That's the tractor pull area looking north at about Flug Road. All the pipe, as I said, is in the ground, and they're just trying to get some of this area cleaned up and restored back to its original condition. Pretty much same location, just looking south. You have Flug Road in the background there. And then across the creek on the other side, this is directly over Flug Road looking straight south. This picture was actually taken about a week ago. All of that pipe and most of that work is complete and has all been cleaned up. And they're spreading topsoil and ripping things and getting ready for things to be turned back over to the farming community to start planting there. So. Moving on to Zweibel Creek 3, just some real quick update photos of the electrical building at that particular location for the lift station. We did receive receipt of that facility. Hawkins is storing it in their yard currently. We kind of showed some pictures of what those buildings will look like, but these are our actual buildings of what this structure will look like once it's placed on site. So just kind of some real rough elevations and then some interior photos of the drive gears for the motors and pump systems, as well as some of the communication lines and electrical work, some of the panels and things. Not real exciting, but thought I'd share that with you just so you could see we have taken receipt of that. This is basically hovering over your South 63rd Street, just to the west of the lift station site at Zweibel. I think the last month that we reported on this, you could kind of see it sticking up out of the ground. They've got everything backfilled here to grade and pretty much ready to start digging footings for that electrical building, laying some of that underground conduit and electrical piping there and some of the other interior plumbing. This is looking straight north, 63rd Street there to the left side of the page. Pretty much you can see in the background there the topsoil that's been respread and ready to be planted into the farming community or turned back over to the farming community for planting purposes. And same thing here, you can see the creek stabilization, erosion control matting, seeding, things buttoned up, the bollards and around the manholes and the manholes themselves, and then a lot of that erosion control and creek stabilization pretty much extending north all the way to 72nd Street. Segment 3, this photo is actually just to the south of the lift station, looking due south. Platteview Road is in the background there. As you can see in this photograph right here, they've actually got the boring under the creek to the lift station site. They need to tie all this pipe in and get that dug in, but making pretty good progress there. And then moving just a little bit further south here, you can see they've got bore pits on both sides of 63rd Street. They're making that bore crossing. They got both the casing pipes in, looking at installing the carrier pipe here in the next week or so and getting that thing buttoned back up. And then this is basically looking from 63rd Street due east. You can see they've made the crossing here under the creek at this location, Platteview Road to the right-hand side of the page. And then you can see the pipe sticking up out of the ground.
What address is that?
This is right at 63rd and
53rd?
Platteview. 63rd and Platteview.
We're looking at Platteview. We're 63rd.
63rd. We're basically hovering right over the top of it. So bottom of the page here. Yep, looking straight east.
So whose farm is that on the upper right-hand corner?
Upper right-hand corner here.
Yeah.
Brugman.
Okay. Got it. Thanks.
Yes, sir. And then just jumping down, let's see, going back here, just jumping down to the foreground of the picture here, you'll see the crossing that they've got put in across Platteview Road, getting ready to head further to the east. That's just a picture on the other side looking down Platteview Road. This is a photograph. The Platteview Golf Course is in the background here. 36th Street's kind of in the background, so we're just a little bit west of 36th Street here. They're working their way towards the west, so they've got all the pipe in installed up to this point here, all the way to the east to roughly 27th Street. Like I said, these photos are about a week behind schedule, but we're moving towards the east, towards the golf course. You can see the golf course back here in the background. As we continue to move, the golf course is sitting right over here. So everything's installed basically up to this point. It's been tied together. This is the location where we cut across the road and then come back across and then across 36th Street here in the background. And then this is as of last week where they were at on the west side of 27th Street, but most of this pipe's in and they're just tying everything together. So like I said, it's coming together very well, progressing very well and ahead of schedule. And then this is just sitting, hovering right over. This is plat view on the left-hand side of the page looking due west, 27th Street. It's the bottom of the page here. Jumping on to segment 4, this is the tie-in structure location. Like I said, that structure is complete. They were trying to get that thing backfilled before we got the rain. Did not run Mother Nature, but nonetheless, they're working on getting that pumped down and getting that structure backfilled, and then getting all the fill installed in and around that structure so they can actually start working on the borings under the West Papio Creek. This is jumping up to Highway 75. This is looking straight west, Highway 75, and then the Platte Road here is the left-hand side of the page. They've got the borings, both borings under Highway 75 installed. They're working on getting the carrier pipe pushed through there, and they're also working on the crossing at La Platte Road here, railroad track, just for, I guess, orientation purposes, run right through here in the backside, so this is looking east. They've got the bores in across La Platte Road here as well. So a lot of tedious work that they're working on right now, but once they get this stuff done, they'll be ripping and getting pipe put in the ground at the speed of light, hopefully here. So this is the other end of the project. They're working their way. Like I said, they got everything at Pinecrest and 10th Street installed all the way up to this point. They're just working at trying to get across one driveway here, and then 27th Street's towards the bottom of the page here, getting that stuff all tied together. And this is just a picture hovering just west of 27th Street here, plat view on the right-hand side of the page. They've got the boring and casings in underneath 27th Street as well. They're just working on getting that carrier pipe installed in the ground and through the casing pipes. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have in regards to construction progress, schedule, so on and so
So
forth.
can you go back to the 63rd Street pictures on the north side of the Platte Road? Where it shows the stabilization of the creek with the rock. I think it's on
on Hansen's
Mr.
property?
Hansen's
Yeah.
property, I believe.
Yep. Oh, missed it right.
Oh, there it was, right
Right there, or I guess that one.
Yeah, so are we good with that?
Yeah, it's
I
what,
know there was some concern about,
yeah, it's what we can do by the terms of our 404 permit.
okay.
That's the extent of what we can do.
I think it looks a lot better than it did. It used to just be concrete slabs in there, right?
There were some old concrete slabs
was
that were in
kind of
there,
a-
and it was overgrown with weeds and grass and things like that. I mean, I'm sure the slabs were, not as easily displaced as some rock and riprap and things like that, but this is what we were allowed to put back in regards to.
Thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate it. Any questions for Jeff? Okay, Adam, Charleston Legal Counsel.
Thank you, Chairman Kelly. We've spent the bulk of the last 30 days working on land rights again. After tonight, we'll have about 9 tracks left, and that'd be a total of high 70s, low 80s of owners, parcels acquired since we started this. So the Midwest Right-of-Way team and Jeff led that effort, and it's been, knock on wood, pretty seamless. In addition to the agenda items tonight, as Dan alluded to, we have a lot of WIFIA work ahead of us. We've made some good progress on aligning the EPA requirements for this loan with what SRF has now and what they'll expect when we close. So we're kind of connecting those two agencies together, and hopefully in the next 2 weeks, 30 days, we'll have some more good news to share on that front. But we'll keep plugging away, looking to hit June 30th on that loan funding and finish the system. So I could speak to the rest of these things here, but the rest of the agenda, covers a lot of things we've worked on the last few weeks. But happy to answer any specific questions you have.
Questions, comments? Thanks, Adam.
Thank you.
Yeah, I need to toss out an alibi here. I forgot to mention somebody when I was recognizing the staff here. Our treasurers are here. Treasurers, plural. So our new treasurer, which hopefully we'll approve here shortly, is Jim Timmerman. And then our outgoing guy, the guy with the beard trying to look incognito, former deputy city administrator of Papillion, and now the city administrator for the city of Blair. Phil Green is here as well. And Phil, just want to thank you. This is just a more formal thanks will be coming because you are a legacy member of this agency. You've been running our financials since day one, and we want to make sure we give you an appropriate send-off. It won't be today, but hopefully at our next meeting or at some point in the future, we'll coordinate what will be your very busy schedule to try to hook up with you and give you appropriate recognition for your 4.5, is it about 4.5?
He's been here 3, but Papillion's been doing it for 4.5, 5
yeah,
years.
So 3 years, or it's a long time anyway, so appreciate your public service.
I'll say this, that when he took over, our budget was $250,000. That's $130 million.
Well, there you go. I can't even balance my checkbook at home, so I really appreciate the work you do. Okay, let's get right into the agenda here. We have 2 items on the consent agenda. Would any of the agency members like to see those moved to the regular agenda for discussion? If not, I'll take a motion to approve as published.
So move, Bellevue. Second.
A motion by Bellevue, second by Springfield. Any discussion? Please vote.
Yea 6, nays none, motion carried.
Okay, item number 3 is Resolution 11. It's appointing our new treasurer of the Sarpy County and City's Wastewater Agency, Dan Hoynes, Agency Administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, member mayors. I've worked closely with the agency chair and the vice chair, Mayor Kendig, in this transition. Our preferred course is, to have a city rep do this, but as I speak with each one of your administrators, the scope and of their current responsibilities just don't allow for this heavy of a lift. When we went back and reviewed both the formation agreement and the CFO systems agreement that was approved in November, I don't think we intentionally anticipated this, but the agreement covers the structure to appoint and to pay CFO systems to serve in this role. Certainly, James Timmerman, as in November, he's been drinking, by the fire hose. He's done a good job transitioning. I'm just really comfortable with this, and I in discussing it with fellow admins, we're not sure this is a permanent solution, but as we go through the budget and try to figure out, I think our heart's always to have a city be kind of a municipal representative in one of these 3 offices that are appointed. But for now, very confident in James's ability and would respectfully request you approve his appointment as the CFO/treasurer.
Great, thanks. Hey, James, would you mind just coming up and telling the agency board a little bit about your background?
Oh, hi again. My name's James Timmerman, and I'm with CFO Systems. I have been there for 3.5 years now. I came from my background really is in cattle feeding and processing, and I was a CFO at a meat processing facility here in Omaha, but left that position, joined CFO Systems, like I said, about 3.5 years ago. And so in my position, I've been acting as a CFO for nonprofits, for-profit businesses, kind of a wide range of businesses and nonprofits here in the Omaha area. And just as a background with CFO Systems, we also have other members supporting me in terms of like regular accounting, process, and transactions. So it's really kind of a team effort with all of us.
Great. Are you from Nebraska originally?
Yeah, I'm originally from Omaha, Nebraska.
Omaha?
Yes.
Well, welcome to the team.
Well, thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, Can I get a motion on Resolution 11?
Motion to approve.
Second, Bellevue.
Okay, a motion by Gretna, second by Bellevue. Any further discussion or comments? Please vote.
Yea, 6, nays none, motion carried.
Okay, item 4 is Resolution 12. It's approving the Sarpy County and City's Wastewater Agency 2023-2024 budget. Dan Hoynes, Agency Administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, member mayors. I'm going to ask Jeff Thompson to come to the podium and potentially get an assist from our new interim treasurer, or CFO, interim treasurer. From my perspective, here's the import of what you should be considering here. This entire budget is predicated on this agency getting a $55 million revenue stream. Best available information today is that's going to be a $45 million WIFIA loan and a $10 million state grant. But the entire budget's built on the receipt of that. So if something were to go south there, we would have to reconvene as a board and look at an amendment to the budget. I'm not jinxing or cursing us, but I just want to be clear that those are not solidified. We're getting really close. But with that, I'll turn the detail and the overall to Jeff. He did probably 85% of this budget himself. So I'm going to have him give you a high level, and then went over it with your admins 2 weeks ago, and with Mr. Timmerman and Phil Green. So Jeff, fire away.
Chairman Kelly, agency member, mayors, Jeff Thompson again, project engineer. I guess just high level, as Dan said, most of this is predicated on a revenue source outside of connection fees, being the WIFIA loan and or a combination of grants to the tune of roughly about $95 million. Some of that being the balance of the loan that we currently have through SRF, but for all intensive purposes, overall total resources available for next year is right around that $95 million mark. As you may recall, some months back, the board approved a resolution that granted us the authority to hire Carollo Engineering for a rate study. We've been working with that team to look at O&M, or actual O&M costs for the system, have populated the expenditures associated with some correspondence with them accordingly to get us down to roughly a total expenditure line item of about $86 million. So, looking at, $7 million-ish in total overall net proceeds. Obviously, we'll need that for debt service moving forward in the future, as well as operating expenses until we get a steady stream of revenue coming in from user rates. But I'm not sure if anybody has any individual questions. Be happy to answer any on specific line items if you do have any, but want to make the best use of your time and not go through everything line item by line item. So I will open it up for questions if you have any.
I would just like to add, Mr. Chair, member mayors, that the agency is the first approver of the proposed budget. This is the one time that this budget has to navigate its way through 5 city councils and the county board. Certainly the county board and the agency budget are a June 30 deadline, but that's why we said we got to get the last meeting in April, we got to get it to you folks. And then it makes its way through these cities over the next 2 months. And then once the last city, or the county would be the last approver, and then the budget would be adopted. So it's about a 2-month process.
So on the expenditures, or the supply chain and inflation, and drove up the original construction costs, which necessitated the WIFIA loan. What's it looking like for material and labor costs? Have they held steady? Has there been any fluctuation that the board needs to be aware of at this point, or?
Preliminary discussions with the Hawkins team is that things are fairly steady. That, the contingency dollars that we've built into the budget up to this point, which we're floating right around that 7% mark, should be more than adequate to cover any additional inflation costs. between now and the time we actually execute those additional packages and move them forward with construction. I will say that to date, the CPP packages that were issued are trending much lower than what we'd anticipated as far as costs. We're learning some things as, construction progresses and, making adjustments as we go to lower costs. Obviously staying in compliance with permitting and those kinds of things, but we're trending lower than we had expected with this first round of construction with the Hawkins team, so.
So just when the WIFIA loan proceeds are received, we will only obligate what's required, right, Dan?
It's a reimbursement.
Yeah, it's a draw.
process, so,
It's a draw program, just like SRF. Right now, they didn't just sign us a check of $70 million we put in the bank, and we actually have to make draws against that.
Okay.
Provide them with the appropriate documentation, so.
But if I may, Mr. Chair, I want to point something I missed, and my apologies. Jeff just superficially touched on it. So we've all been socialized, it'll be a year in July, to a $60 million shortage. Right? The number is 58.9. So we've been solving for 60, but they've got that down $3.5–4 million in the last year just by, the issues he's talked about, by, being better engineering and different designs and things. I think that's a real credit to having Jeff on board and Hawkins on why we hired him. I mean, these folks are out there, they've shaved $4 million off this thing. And that's why the WIFIA loan, if we get our state grant, it's going to be $45 million and not 60. So it really high level, top drawer staff working on it. So appreciate that, Jeff and Hawkins.
Okay. Just for the benefit of the agency members, Vice Chairman Kindig and I went through this budget line by line, and we didn't see anything that caused any concern. However, it was pointed out that we're still budgeting for professional services. And as you guys recall, we hired a lobbyist last year to help us generate dollars from the state toward the project. And results are still pending, but it's looking good so far. But next year, we don't think we're going to need that. So, but we left it in the budget as a placeholder just in case, but that could be, some money that comes back to our budget that we don't have to spend. So otherwise, I think it looks like a really good budget, a good plan to deviate from, as they say in budgeting. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask them. Okay, then if there's no further questions or comments, I'd like to see a motion to approve this budget.
I'll make a motion. Second, Bellevue.
Okay, motion by Springfield, a second by Bellevue. Any further comments? Please vote.
Yea, 6, nays none, motion carried.
Okay, item number 5 is Resolution 13, approving and authorizing the chair to execute the first amendment of the interlocal agreement for contribution allocation of Omaha Public Power District payment in lieu of taxes, also known as pilot. Dan Hoynes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, member mayors. So when we started out with pilot 3 years ago, it generated a lot of excitement, a lot of potential. It's still a welcomed addition, but it's gotten complicated. The recent complication is that a couple of cities' attorneys issued opinions that when the funds are distributed from the treasurer to the respective cities, it's a twofold, the bond fund and general fund. And the attorney said, well, you can't pledge that bond, those restricted funds, to pay those back. And so this amendment releases all of the agency members. And to date, there's only been 2 that have paid pilot, by the way, Sarpy County, City of Papillion. It releases not only the current, but the future pilot payments from having to use their restricted pilot funds. There's also a second component that because of the formula change, there was a baseline in 2018 that was established on how these payments would be made, and that had to be recalculated. I won't even attempt to answer the recalculation. There is a process. Chris Myers, who many of us know, is the subject matter expert. If you want a tutorial on how she did it, and we can order pizza and she can walk you through it. But it does two things, Mr. Chair, member mayors. It lessens the amount of pilot. For instance, this year that is lowered by about $200,000. It was $589, goes down to $389. Keeping in mind that this all gets paid back at some point. It's really a loan. Last comment is the reduction, the new formula are all blended into the proposed budget that you just approved here. So it's been anticipated and plugged in, and it's a de minimis impact. So with that, I respectfully ask approval, and if you want to talk to Ms. Myers, I will call Pizza Hut.
Way to deflect there, agency administrator. Any questions at all from the board? Okay, motion then?
Motion to approve.
Okay, I'll second it. Sarpy. Motion by Gretna, second by Sarpy. Any further comments? Please vote.
Yea, 6, nays none, motion carries.
Okay, item 6 is Resolution 14. This grants an exception under the agency's growth management plan and policies for an urban reserve zone parcel located at 16031 South 63rd Street, Papillion, Nebraska. Jeff Thompson, agency project engineer.
Chairman Kelly, agency member mayors, Jeff Thompson, project engineer for the agency. The exception request that you have before you today came in from the Sarpy County Planning Department. This request is for a single-family residential home to be constructed on a existing tax lot parcel that the property owner owns. It's my understanding under Sarpy County's regulations, this is an allowance for someone that is a family member, a ranch hand or something of that nature. They're allowed to build multiple homes on that particular site. This one's been a bit of a challenge for us. It came in November, and we've been working with the property owner and working through Sarpy County's planning department to try to better understand how things are going to transpire here. The request is to remove a single-family home, build a new single-family home. The original intent was to potentially reuse the existing septic system that was on site. However, the planning department wasn't able to get confirmation or a comfortable certification that that septic system would take the flow from that new structure that's being built. So it kind of flagged the agency to have to grant a request for an exception to install a new septic system. As you may recall, our growth management policies require with development, and they may be semantics, but nonetheless, they're part of our policies. Under development, new development, easements for future utilities are required to be dedicated. And in most cases, well, in all cases with exception requests up to this point, property owners have made those dedications at no expense to the agency. However, in this particular case, the property owner would prefer not to dedicate those easements without payment or potentially reserve them for payment in the future. But the way we've basically structured or positioned this resolution is it's contingent upon them dedicating the easements at no cost to the agency, just like everything else that has been to this point in time. So with that, we do have the property owner here, and I'd like to give them an opportunity to come up, present their case, and ask for potential waiver of that regulation. But at this point, as it stands from a staff and policy level, we're trying to meet the intent of our regulations and requesting that those easements be granted. Mr. Brugman?
Yes, I'm Merlin Brugman, and just here to ask for a exception. Now, my hearing is kind of bad, so I don't know. I think Jeff pretty much covered everything that we went over. We tried just about every avenue that we could, and we even, I think he mentioned it, we was going to try to use the old septic system, which apparently doesn't meet up to code for the new dwelling. But now with this situation with this proposed wastewater line that goes along the creek, there's in your rules or your bylaws says that you can't give an exception for a septic tank because you don't have the easement on that line for future use. Now, originally, they told us if we give you that easement, that yes, the wastewater group would give us the exception for the septic tank. But now, we're talking a lot of money for us to just give you that easement, and we just can't see to do that. But now we're not adding a house because we plan on tearing the old house down and destroying it. Now, my son and his family lives in the old house, and he was basically wanting to get a larger house because this is an old farmhouse. It's close, I would say it's close to 100 years old. But and we had storm damage back in 2019 when we had that windstorm come through. So that's the reason for fixing it up, because when we looked into it, at the time, we was going to possibly build an addition on to that house. Well, then the planning committee told us we couldn't because we were too close to Platteview Road. So that stopped it. So now we thought our son, he's already purchased a new house, but it's one of these houses they call a shoust. I call it a shed house, but they have some very unique buildings, and it's going to be a more or less a unique type of house to where it won't be detrimental to the property or anything to that such. But that's about all I have to say, and I just as far as that easement, I guess I have one question for each and every one of you on the board. Would you give, now for an easement, the full width of our property? They've been getting between $40,000 to $50,000 for that length of an easement. And would any of you on the board, would you give the wastewater group $50,000 out of your pocket? I mean, that's where we're coming from, and we just can't see our way. So I just ask that you look it over.
How big is the easement itself? Is it an acre, 2 acres, 3 acres?
For what now?
For where the creek runs through your property? I mean, what is the total square footage of the
Now
easement?
that we haven't, they talked about the setback from the creek. It's going to run the full length of the creek,
Yeah,
similar to the property just north of us, about a quarter of a mile, when they put a line in.
okay.
But now that that property was, well, he received well over 40,000 on that because they made a little turn on his property and took a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm sure the sewer project's gonna make land more expensive rather than
Well,
cheaper.
I mean, in time. And the thing is, we'd be more than willing to sell it now, but I know your budgets are very tight, so I realize that could be down the line. I'm saying 10 to 15 years before you'd ever want to put a sewer line to the south.
Just notionally, I guess I'll ask our legal counsel, just notionally, if somebody wanted to build, but there's no pipe there yet to hook up to, the procedure would be they'd apply for an exception and it'd be granted, right?
Yeah, like we've done before, Chairman Kelly, it's on other exception requests, we would have the property owner or developer seek exception to run septic until public wastewater brought that tract.
But the fact that we don't purchase or the easement's not provided doesn't prevent the county at some point in the future, if they have to access the property, from accessing the property, correct? For easement issue, any easement issue in the future?
The issue here is going to be one of payment.
Yeah.
That's the debate here, Mr. Chairman. You know, what the agency is requiring and requesting in this resolution, as we have for 3+ years now, is if you're going to do some development, it's going to change. We know we need that land at some point.
Right.
So as a condition, you're going to dedicate that for free in there. And this is a hard one. Mr. Broom's a gentleman. I wish most people that we have conflicts with were as kind and professional as him. But we've tried to noodle this multiple ways, but at the end of the day, we've never waived this. And I think this would be a legal question. I think you set a precedent by waiving that fee without some consideration of what's different here. What's the outlier? And we can't find the outlier. We tried to work the septic system. The county guy went out and looked, Don Simon, thought, well, maybe that's the way, just let him go off this septic. But that septic's not to the state he can do it. And so, and I think, Mr. Bergman, I think your real point of pain, and we spent a couple of hours together a few months ago, it is not getting reimbursed for that easement, right? Is that the point of pain for you is not getting reimbursed for that easement, having to give that away for free?
That's it.
Yeah.
That's the thing. We're talking a lot of money.
And there's 5 conditions in the resolution. And so if you pass the resolution, he would have to comply with all 5, including dedicating the easement. If there was an appetite to change any of those, then the board would have to entertain a motion to amend this resolution to remove 1, 2, 3. But again, it's a policy level decision. We've tried to work with them, but if we're going to go outside of it, then that kind of belongs on this side of the table, with the understanding that.
But what my point is, that we're replacing a house. I guess I look at it, if we would run into troubles, heaven forbid, a tornado comes along, blows the house down, and we would want to build a house, what would happen there?
Yeah, I think we went through that down at Chris and Hanson Lakes a few years ago in there. I mean, if it's more than 50%, it's a new development. It's a new house. And that's pretty consistent. I don't know, we got a planner here. Maybe I should task him with it. So, yeah, I understand your position.
I mean, it's just, I guess the part of replacement is what I just don't, because we're just not trying to do anything different. We're just replacing a house.
Right, and I think that, again, for clarity, and if I'm missing it, I think, Jeff, but is that if you build the house, then a requirement, you got to put a septic system in there, right? a new one. And that starts to trigger all of the exception requests in our GMPs about easements and all of these other things that are coming in, so. And this isn't the first one. We've done a half a dozen, Jeff? A half a dozen, very, very similar, and every time the easement's been dedicated with no fee to the agent or cost to the agency.
So your instruction was that if the agency wants to grant an exception, they have to amend this resolution as it's currently published?
If you approve it as written, then you're saying you can develop it, but you have to comply with all the conditions, which include dedicating the easement for free. They're listed 1 through 5.
Yeah, which one is it? Is it number 4?
Yeah, number 4, yeah. If there was an appetite by the policymakers, you could make a motion to amend and remove number 4. And then he would have to comply with the remaining 4. There's 5 total.
Adam, does presidents establish policy? So if an exception's granted to one homeowner, does it become policy for all future homeowners? Or is it on a case-by-case basis? So it's just the best judgment of the agency at the time the request comes in? And it doesn't bind us to any future decisions affecting similar decisions?
It's a precedence, though.
Yeah.
Well, and the question of the agency, I mean, if it's $40,000 today, what's it going to be 10 years from now when you need it? Because you're going to have to pay that when you go get it 10 years from now when you need it at whatever the market value is.
So that value with the sewer system being there is going to raise, 15 years from now, is going to raise the price. That easement might be worth $100,000 then. So you say we've done 6 of these?
Yes. Now, in fairness, the other ones were really easy calls. It was clearly being developed, and it's, the intended use here, I mean, it's far south, right? Platteview Road. It's a family thing. I'm glad I'm sitting down here, not up there. The longest 18 inches between your heart and your head. There's some logic to it. But I think you ask a very good question, Mr. Chairman. Does this bind us? And I think your lawyer answered that for you.
Well, I mean, I was aware of this situation. Obviously, I've talked to Commissioner Warren and some other folks that are a little bit more knowledgeable of the details, but I think for the majority of the board, this is the first time they've seen it, when the agenda was published. So they probably haven't had time to do a thorough review and do some vetting of their own. This is, because it's a precedence, I think it would be valuable if, and I don't want to set your project plans back any further, but I think a month of thought by the board to kind of talk to each other privately, to talk to you perhaps, get a better perspective, I think would probably be time well spent. That's just my take. So what I would like to do is propose that we table this motion for 1 month and readdress it in May, and that'll give everybody time to really vet the issues, talk to legal counsel, talk to planning and zoning, talk to all the participants, and be able to come to a more thoughtful conclusion rather than just a spur of the moment decision that has a huge impact on you and your family.
Good. I just want to add that you already have an easement up on the top part of the hill, just up in our northeast corner. And when your agency came out this past summer to buy that easement, we were more than willing. We took his first offer, and we never, was it good enough? Probably not, but we did not argue. We did not, so we're not in it for the money, but this other easement on this long, all the way across our property is just, that's just too much money.
It runs diagonal across your property, doesn't it?
It
From
goes all the way,
northwest to southeast?
goes north to the south, right beside the creek.
Here, we'll give a picture up here. Ron. Jeff, is there a total acreage on the proposed taking? Did we engineer it to that?
We didn't calculate it, no. So this is the property, 63rd Street, Platteview Road. It runs basically diagonal from Platteview down to the section line, the quarter section line.
What's your estimate on the number of acres, Jeff?
It's half an acre to a half an acre, probably, somewhere around there.
With the length and the width, it's total half an acre.
Right.
South of one, certainly. South of 1 acre, certainly.
I guess
Okay.
right around
Mark?
Tabling is a very, go ahead, Mark.
Well, I would say I would not object to a table. I was going to ask a question to Jeff of looking down the road. Once, if the easement's in place and the sewer is installed, what are the limitations of the use of that easement property at that time?
everything that we've approved at this point. I mean, obviously no structures, but, you know, anything superficial, basically at the surface, you know, trails, you know, landscaping, those kinds of things are kind of our typical easement language that for allowances for property owners to still utilize those easements, but obviously no structures or things underground.
So in this case, though, because a major line will run through his property, essentially, it won't just service his property, it'll serve everything to the south that feeds into that.
That is correct.
That hasn't been the case on some of these previous ones, right? The easement was granted to run a line that connected to the trunk line,
yes.
but only to the property, right?
I'll defer
I mean,
to Jeff,
that's
but
the kind of
believe
stuff
that.
I want to dig into over this
I think a
next month.
motion to table, we got some work to do here, and I think that's very fair. If this is what the board wants, we can get written opinions from everybody. But this one is just not as clean as I wish it were, both from a human or an engineering perspective.
Yeah. Well, yeah, so I'll make that motion to table this and give the board and the agency members a chance to really do a little bit more spade work on it. Perhaps talk to the landowner and anyone else they think would help them make an informed decision. Because at the end of the day, I sit on this thing called the Board of Equalization, and I'm sure the mayors and city officials have similar kind of boards where you kind of sit in judgment, you know, as the judge, the jury, and the prosecutor, and the defense attorney, basically. And, you know, I have a tendency to always try to, I mean, government's supposed to serve the people, right? Not make their life worse, right? So I always try to find the solution that works both for the government and the taxpayers. And right now, I haven't quite threaded that needle, but I want to spend a month trying to figure out how I can do it without causing future concerns to the agency as an entity if this comes up again in the future. So if you can get, be very helpful.
Okay. No, that sounds very good.
Okay.
I just want to thank you for your time.
I'll
So
second
I have
that
a
motion.
motion to table by Commissioner Kelly, right?
Yeah, and a second by Bellevue.
Okay.
We vote on that?
Not yet, please vote.
Okay.
Waiting, okay, there we go. Yea, 6, nays, none, motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Item 7 is Resolution 15. It authorizes the board chair and vice chair to execute land rights purchases. Adam?
Thank you, Chairman Kelly. This resolution has seeks authorization to enter 4 separate purchase agreements with the owners stated therein for their parcels on those septic tracts with limitations, caps, I guess, on the total comp that have been negotiated with the folks at Midwest right away. And I recommend that you approve them.
Okay, motion, please.
Bellevue.
Second.
Motion by Bellevue, second by Gretna. Comments? Please vote.
Yea, 6, nays, none, motion carries.
Okay, last item is Resolution 16, approving the filing of petitions to condemn necessary property rights. Adam?
Thank you, Chairman Kelly. This is seeking, this resolution 016, we're seeking authority from this board to pursue condemnation action on we got 7 properties listed here. We still will continue ongoing negotiations with property owners. We will not file this tomorrow, but with these and the agreements you just approved on the last resolution should be the last property rights items we bring to the board, unless something particular shows up. So we'll continue to work like we have in the past and hopefully get deals struck without filing condemnation. So I ask for your approval.
How many condemnations do we have so far in process?
Filed 2 or 3, but have actually never made it to the hearing.
So we have none? Okay.
None.
All right.
Okay, questions? Motion?
Bellevue.
Second.
Gretna, second. Motion by Bellevue. Any further comments? Please vote.
Yea, 6, nays, none, motion carries.
Okay, next meeting is May 24th, 2023. We are now adjourned because all agenda items have been addressed as published, and thank you for coming.